let's talk about this. I recently saw somewhere, and I won't say where, what to do when things aren't going well. The way it was phrased was when things aren't going right. And I had to stop and I had to think about that. When things just aren't going right. I think we've all been there. I know I have. Look, you don't have any food in the refrigerator. You know, we act as though everyone has a refrigerator. And even if they have a refrigerator, we act as though everyone has food. It could be something just as basic as that. Maybe you have food, but your car is breaking down. Maybe you're behind on your rent. There's a lot of stressors in the society. And we overlook a lot of that. In large part to our detriment. But everybody's different. What to do when things aren't going right. First and foremost, all I can do or say is what I do myself. This is going to sound cliche, very much so, but stay calm and carry on. You know, it's so true. Slow and steady wins the race. A lot of people forget this. And it's easy to forget when you're stressed out. But staying calm is hugely important because it makes you not act irrationally. I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but a lot of people in the general society are acting very irrational. So staying calm and carrying on is vital. You know, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the Queen who recently passed away, Queen Elizabeth, in the 1930s, London, the city, was being bombed. Yes, there were bombs dropping in the city of London in the 1930s. And a young Queen Elizabeth, as the bombs were dropping in her city, came before the nation, resolute, and calmly spoke to the nation and told them to remain calm and carry on. What to do when things just aren't going right. Stay calm and carry on. Ooh. On the individual level, we're facing some existential threats to our survival. On the collective level, we're facing some existential threats to our survival. Remain calm and carry on. It's hugely important to tell yourself this psychologically. You know, they say the West is struggling with mental health because people are not staying calm. I'm not saying that's the only issue with mental health, but in large part with a lot of people it is. Stress causes mental health issues. Stressors like lack of food, lack of housing. We know that leads to depression, anxiety. And those things lead to mental health issues. There's correlation. So telling your brain to stay calm and to carry on, that you'll get through this, is one way to combat that. The carry on part is huge. People think when they hear the term carry on that it means continue doing what you're doing. And in large part it could mean this. But carry is an action verb. Listen, you're going to learn something. To carry is shows action. You're carrying on. Okay. You're taking action. Even if it's small steps, you're taking action. And the small steps lead to the much larger leap. If you go outside and you walk, pretty soon you're going to have walked a whole block. Now, each step led to you walking that block. Each little action you take can lead to a larger result. For others, carrying on might mean carrying on something different or new. A lot of people don't like change. I get it. Change is difficult. Internally, externally, emotionally, psychologically, physically. But we're constantly changing. Some of you change clothes like every 30 minutes, I think. You've met some people that every 30 minutes they have on a different outfit. We outgrow things. What we could fit last year might be too small or too big this year. So we're constantly changing. So carrying on might mean changing something. Maybe changing a career, changing a profession, changing a hobby, changing a philosophy, changing your church, changing your mosque, changing your synagogue, changing your religion, changing your name. It could mean anything carrying on. But it's that persistence, the action of carrying. Once you're doing something, once you're taking action, regardless of how small, you're still working towards progress. Long term. We use walking as an analogy. Before you know it, you'll have walked a block. But you started with one step. So people really overlook the phrase, stay calm and carry on. They really don't understand that. But that's profoundly monumental. Profound. That's what I do when things aren't going right. We can look outside and see for ourselves with our own eyes, smell with our own nose, taste with our own mouth, that things aren't going right. And I know people want to point the finger and blame something. It's easy to point the finger at an external thing, because we can only see forward. We can't see backwards. But when you point the finger at an external thing and you say, that's the thing, I've identified it now. When you do such a thing, you might have correctly identified your issue. But oftentimes when people point an external finger at something, it's something that they can't change. Have you noticed that? Americans, we're really good at this. Let me give you an example. Americans love to say, we the people. Because we're a republic, right? We the people. You hear this all the time from Americans. We the people, we the people, we the people. And then all of a sudden, it changes. We go to the external finger pointing. It's the government. You hear that too. Those no good politicians, they're all corrupt. You hear this. I dislike the government. You hear this. And I say, wait a minute. It went from we the people to now this external, it's the government's fault. Americans, do you know why you do this? It really took me some time to really figure out why Americans do this. You do this because you don't want to have to do any kind of introspection. You don't want to have to point the finger at yourself. So it's easy to point it at someone else. It can't be we the people, and we the people are the government. And then you blame the government, which is you, the people. You're really pointing the finger at yourself, but not wanting to call it that. You're wanting to blame some external thing for an internal problem. What to do when things aren't going right? Avoid blaming others for your issues. Oh, this is going to be difficult because people love to take out their frustration on others for their own issues. You really see it nowadays in our society with men. And this is a whole different video. But we're going to talk about this. Avoid blaming others when things aren't going right. They're not going right for you. Things could be going perfectly for your sister, your cousin, your niece, your nephew, your uncle, your granny. They're not going right for you. So don't take out your frustration on them. You know, a lot of people over the holiday, you know this happened, got into heated arguments about shit. Really bullshit. They're frustrated. And they want to take out their frustration on someone else besides themselves. So they have all kinds of excuses. And if you're really clever and you sit at the table and you just listen as they ranted about the government, scientists, teachers, the police. They had a rant about everything, didn't they? But oh, there was one thing missing. They didn't talk about themselves. They didn't talk about their issue with themselves. It was everyone else but them. Now this is classic what we call narcissism. And a lot of Americans are undiagnosed narcissists. This is why you can point the finger and blame everything but yourself, because you're narcissistic. It can't be you, can it? You cannot be the problem. It must be something else. Think about that. How many people sit around and say when they're having an issue that because their issue, it's someone else's fault that did this to them? And they might have done it to themselves. I mean, look at the scapegoating we have going on of entire groups nowadays. America, you've gotten really bad with scapegoating. Entire groups. And this because we don't want to analyze our culpability in the mess. People will criticize law enforcement, for example. But they have relatives and family members in law enforcement. They can get the 411 scoop. But they don't want to. They want to state opinions that they read or feelings that they have. They want to blame someone else instead of themselves. So we all do it. There's a lot of scapegoating. We all do it. It's problematic. It's not good. But we do it. So as much as possible, when things aren't going right, avoid blaming others. And the last thing I personally do when things aren't going right, well, I try not to think about it. Now, this is going to be difficult because you're trying to deceive your brain. Some people will say that's avoidance. as though avoidance is always negative. Look, if I see a burglary happening, I'm going to try to avoid the burglary. I'm not going to walk and say, hey, how are you doing tonight, Mr. Burglar? So avoidance isn't always negative. And not thinking about something that's negative is a positive. It's amazing. This is true scientifically, although they have not discovered it yet. But we have. When your brain is negative, you can't see positive. When you're negative, think about this. When you're in a negative mood, it's hard to cheer you up. Is that not true? When you're negative, think about this individually, not collectively, individually as a person. When you're in a negative space, a negative headspace, when you're feeling down and negative about something, somebody could call you and say, hey, let's go get some ice cream. And you're like, no, I don't feel like it. And their friend is like, come on, we'll go and get your favorite ice cream. Come on, come on. And you're like, no. That's because you're in a negative space. When you're negative, you can't see positive. It's crazy. That's why a lot of criminality happens. That space between criminality and negativity is correlated. Even if it's out of desperation. You're in a negative, desperate mood. It's not positive. So as much as possible, try to avoid it. Don't think about it. Deflect. And the trick is this. When your friend calls you up for ice cream, go and get it. Because now your mind is on something totally new. It's distracted. It's avoided the negativity and shifted into the positivity. Sometimes when somebody doesn't want to do something, really try hard to convince them to do it. If you have good intentions. If you have nefarious intentions, please don't do this. You're acting in a negative light and using negative energy. And we said when you're negative, you can't see positive. So maybe if you have negative intentions, you should do this as well, but in the reverse. It might benefit you. Not thinking about something that's really difficult can get you to think about something that's really easy that you could be doing to take you out of the situation of the difficulty. This is true. Look, wasn't it the famed writer of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling? Wasn't she on government assistance? Struggling, but she had been working on something for years. She had been doing something that she was passionate about. Writing. And that took away the woes of the everyday difficulties. She stayed calm and she carried on. So for those of you who are in that place of things aren't just going right and you know it, you don't have to hear a happy song. Oh, things are going to get better. You know, that doesn't work for people. Although millions of people try it. When somebody says, I'm just not feeling good, they're like, oh, it'll get better. That doesn't work. When things are not going right, you feel it. You see it. You smell it. You taste it. And having someone come along and say, it'll get better, that means nothing. Because you're putting it into the future. Sure, you're trying to distract, but it's not a tangible distraction. I would say, let's go for a picnic. That's tangible. That's something specific that can make it get better. Let's go and see a movie. That's something that's tangible. But just saying it's going to get better, that rarely works when things aren't going right. And so many leaders tend to say that. It's going to get better. But they need to back that up with the tangibles. Something that people can see, feel, taste, smell. That way they know. Oh. A lot of people are in the struggle bus. I'm not riding the struggle bus. I can admit that. But everybody's kind of in the struggle bus, whether they're riding it or not. Because we can all see it and feel it. That a lot of us aren't doing so well. So whether we're personally in the bus or not, the buses driving by full are affecting us, all of us. All the people who are struggling is affecting us, even if we're not struggling. We gotta try to not think about it. Avoidance doesn't mean not doing anything. Because we already said we're carrying on. We're staying calm and not acting irrationally. Irrational actions, I believe, don't lead to good outcomes. 10 out of 10 times when people act irrationally, I've never seen it end so well. I'm just saying. Carrying on. We're taking action. We're taking small steps. Maybe not big steps, but small steps. What to do when things aren't going right. This is what I do. Avoid blaming others. Other people, other things, entities. No. Avoid that. Stay calm and carry on. And try not to think about it. Avoidance. And if you do all of those things, bit by bit, it really does get better. It really does. Before long, things might be going right again. And you'll be like, wait a minute. I didn't really do that much. Yeah, you did a lot. So many people don't do that. So give yourself a pat on the back when things start going right again.